what is the game that you saw from this group that you thought, these are the guys? We're going places in 2026. And when we watch the Nations League, it feels like we've taken a step back in a lot of different facets of it. Isn't just pride or playing as hard as we can or being bastards to play against? Yeah, that's part of it. But it also felt like, man, these guys just don't seem as fluid or even, the tactical and technical side of the game as well just feels like we've been lacking. So I kind of wanted to throw it to you guys. And Tones, I'm going to come to you first. Which game did you see from this group that you thought, these are the guys? I see something in this performance that I know that we can build upon, and we need to get back to that.
The first game that comes to mind was in the 22 World Cup against England. That's the game, the 0-0. I suppose we could have gotten a little bit more in the out of the attack, but they played a really good English side. And I look at, and I think this is maybe part of the frustration. I look at that lineup. You had Turner still in goal. I'm thinking of the guys that are still available to, that are playing now. Tim Ream, okay, he's on the outside, but Anthony Robinson was part of that. Serginho Dest was the right back. Adams, Musa, and McKennie in the midfield. Pulisic on the left. It was Timothy Weah up top with Haji right? So I'm looking and I'm like, well, the core of that group is still available to us. If we could do it in 2022 with the second youngest team in the World Cup, why can't we translate that to 2026 when all of these guys are going to be in their prime statistically age-wise, right? So they're going to be all around 26, 27 years old, that group of players for the most part. Matt Turner will be a little bit older. Some guys will be a little bit older. But we were around 22, 23 years old, somewhere around there in 2022. Like, why can't we see composure in the midfield, knocking the ball through all three lines, however you want to play? They were just comfortable in that game. Of course, needed a goal. But at the time, anybody would have taken a 0-0 draw in that game with England. So that for me, Chuck, is the one that that comes to mind initially.
Yeah, it's funny because I'm looking at that lineup from the England point of view. And so you got Jude, Declan Rice, Bukayo Saka, Harry Kane, right? 4 field players and Pickford. But the 4 field players, if anything, you'd say Jude, Saka, and Declan Rice. Harry Kane has probably stayed the same. He definitely hasn't dropped off. Have gotten better, right? They've improved. That's the core of that starting 11. And you throw in some guys that are probably obviously phasing off. Raheem Sterling fell off a cliff. Mason Mount fell off a cliff. And then, Stones, Maguire, Trippier, Shaw, probably all haven't done well. But you have like an influx of new players that are coming into the team. Now, are they better than they were in 2022? I'd argue, yeah, they are. Plus, they have the experience. I also agree with you, Tony, in terms of a performance that was really encouraging because of that English side and all the talent that you'd say, we outplayed that team over 90 minutes. It was a draw, but you left feeling proud of the group. You left that match saying, man, I can't wait for 2026 because this is a young core and we just matched up with one of the favorites in the World Cup and we got the better of them in that performance. Now, if England underestimated us or maybe thought, okay, we didn't maybe want to take the initiative to them or they got caught off with the tactics, whatever the problem is, I thought that was a phenomenal performance from the guys. Now, to think of a performance where they needed a win and they got the win would be the Iran game in the same tournament. And I look at the Iran performance saying both teams backs up against the wall, knowing that a win will most likely secure them with the second place finish in that group to advance. I look at that being, that's a big performance. Christian put his body on the line, took a knee to the pelvic area. It was a beautiful goal in the way that Weston played it wide to Serginho Dest. And it felt like the game was controlled. Unfortunately, Josh Sargent, who was playing well in that match, had to leave injured. But ultimately, that was a performance that you got to dig deep, you got to get a result, and you got to be resilient. And they checked the box across the way in that match. So I look at that match being like, it wasn't as aesthetically pleasing as the England match, but this is a match in a World Cup where you're playing against a tough opponent and you got to get the job done. So those are the 2 performances that stand out in my mind because I don't want to talk about Gold Cups or Nations Leagues because they're so regional, and no disrespect to Mexico or Canada, but that is on the world stage, and they produced.
No, I agree with you. There's a certain level of maturity in those two games as well, too. A certain level of professionalism in terms of our approach and our discipline, right? To make sure that we were really buttoned up in a lot of different areas. In the England game, too, Weston McKennie had a great chance. He hit it over from the penalty spot. Pretty good look. Another day, he hits the back of the net. Maybe we walk out of that game with a famous 1-0 win over England in the group stages. So, yeah, I like those picks a lot. However, despite the fact that you just disparaged my pick before you even knew what it was, Chuck, I'm going with the Nations League pick, and I'm going to the first Nations League final. It was against Mexico in Denver.
3-2.
Yeah, 3-2. But there was something about that game that I loved. We gave up an early goal, right? You're thinking, oh, crap. Now the fans are all in on Mexico. They're going to beat the U.S. We find our way back into it. Sure, it was through a set piece, maybe not through the run of play, but we get it to 1-1. Then we go down 2-1, and we get another set piece goal with 10 minutes left to make it 2-2. And then we get that goal in extra time, which is the famous shushing of Christian Pulisic off the penalty. We win it 3-2. There was something about that game that I was really encouraged by. I was galvanized with this. Look at these guys. They've got that DNA. They've got that fight. They've got that bite. They want this. And I thought, wow, that is a performance that if you add that mentality and that desire to want to get a result and that fight back with the talent that this group of players obviously has, there really is nothing going to slow us down. And then when we get into the World Cup and you add that level of maturity and professionalism, dude, we are going to be awesome in 2026. And we haven't really seen much of that since then. Maybe we need a World Cup to kind of kick us in the ass with this particular group of players to really get it going. But I was really excited. When I think about that game, I still get excited. Like, this group of players has what we're looking for. We've seen it in previous Nations League, and now we come into this, and it's like, yeah, where's that? Where's that urgency to our game? And can Mauricio Pochettino, is he the guy that can help us find it? Now what's interesting, we'll reference a co-host here, a former co-host. Jesse's kind of given that. Jesse Marsh has given that to Canada. A little bit of that thump. Now, sure, does that kind of that mentality and that energy, can you maintain that over 2 World Cup cycles with the same group? I'm not sure that you can, but Mauricio Pochettino and his coaching staff have to figure out how to light that fire underneath these guys. So I don't know what games have been picked by the comments, but I do think that there are some, which is encouraging, that we have evidence that this team, this core of players, can go out and get results against some of the best players and best teams in the world at the highest and biggest competitions and win games that they need to win. Now, obviously, we could flip this and say there's some pretty disappointing performances along the way as well. But it's nice to know that these guys can tick some of the boxes that we're looking for.
I just want to add, because I don't want to discredit what John Herdman did for that Canada side before Jesse Marsh took over. Let's not forget they were the top 100%. Team in World Cup qualifying. The only thing that they really faltered in was the World Cup. And I look at the inexperience of John Herdman at that level. The biggest mistake him making was before the Croatia game, saying we're going to win this game and disparaging Croatia, and Croatia just absolutely wiped the floor, which is verified that was bulletin board material for Croatia. The coach was like, oh, great. Let me put this smack dab in the middle of the locker room and go, guys, look what Canada's saying. This coach said, you guys are done. You don't have it. So it came back to bite John Herdman in the butt in the way that he got them to be motivated and how they came out, and they were kind of the underdogs, right? They could have easily won that game against Belgium with the chances that they had in that first half on the counter. I mean, Tajon Buchanan had a couple of brilliant chances, Alphonso Davies as well. So can Jesse take them up a notch from where they were? Because they were phenomenal heading into the World Cup. Unfortunately, they underperformed massively. But again, like you said, with this current group, you would have expected them to take another step. Now, the only question I pose is, we hire a coach like Mauricio Pochettino, his first time coaching internationally. Did he have enough time, per se? Right? Did we short him, bringing him in with such a short amount of time and a build up to a World Cup, not having a full grasp of the understanding of a pool that you would normally get, and a 4-year cycle, right? If Berhalter wasn't rehired right away, Pochettino takes it, although he was out of job with Chelsea, and I understand that. But if he was there from that point to now, would the team be in a different position? Would there be more changes in the squad, right? These are just questions. I'm not saying it's one way or another. Versus he comes in and he has to stick with this core because he doesn't have much time.
Well,
right?
I want to add on that, Jimmy, real quick, which then just listening to Charlie talk about this, and we've had the discussion about time. At what point is it too late? If you don't have enough time to prepare the players that you have, excuse me, what point is it too late to start bringing in new players, right? To start bringing in guys that haven't been part of the program. Now, if you tell me somehow Erling Haaland could miraculously get a U.S. citizenship, and you're going to bring Erling Haaland in a month before the tournament, I know I'm exaggerating to make the point, but I think you know what I'm saying. Then you do it. But at what point, if you already don't have enough time, is it too late?